Well, here I am, glutton for punishment, back at it again, reacting to your unpopular opinions. I haven't done one of these in a while, and each time I do them, I kind of try and broaden the lens a little bit. So today's lens that we're looking at is an entire overview of pop music, your unpopular opinions about many things: pop boys, pop girls, albums, songs, the labels. We're really getting into different areas. And you know what? This might be the most hateful batch you've ever sent in. I truly was gagged and silenced multiple times. And so, as the field reporter of mess, I'm here to report some more gagging and silencing back to you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you like thoughtful weekly content, I do make it, just not today. So you can come and find it another week. But you should subscribe to my channel. My name is Zach. I'm a Swiftologist. And my podcast, Evolution of a Snake, is going on tour in the United States later this year. So I will leave all the information about where you can get tickets down below. We are running low on tickets for New York, DC, Boston, and LA. So make sure you go and get your tickets soon, and we can't wait to see you. I kind of like vaguely categorized them this time. So seeing as I am the Swiftologist, why don't we start with the woman, the myth, the legend, Taylor Swift. Taylor is afraid of doing pre-release singles after the critical failure of Me. My instinct when I heard this one was to be like, shut up, that's wrong. And then I kind of thought about it and was like, hang on. Now wait a second. Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, Tortured Poets, not a single lead single in sight. This kind of contrasts a school of thought that I don't entirely subscribe to, that Taylor once used to pick lead singles as a way to kind of disturb audiences or to throw them off the scent of what she was actually trying to do, to mask the genius of what she was bequeathing by putting out something kind of bad, which I don't agree with because I don't think any of her lead singles, bar Me, are bad. But I think there is something to be said about not wanting her message to be taken out of context. And I also think that ever since she did Folklore and Evermore, the more likely reality is that she prefers seeing how people react to the project in its entirety. And the thing with Taylor is that she's always gonna get taken out of context. She's always gonna be misconstrued. So I think not having a pre-release single is just another avenue or an option for her to avoid having that uncomfortable process. I mean, it's gonna come to her regardless either way, but at least when a song like, I don't know, Antihero arrives with the full context of Midnights, you can kind of be like, okay, well, the conceit of the album is that it's about all these disturbed nights I've had throughout my career, their rumblings and reminiscences. Whereas if you didn't know what the album was about at all, she hadn't spoken to you at all, and Antihero came out, you might be like, is this okay? So I can kind of see that argument to be made. I don't know that it's because she's afraid of the critical response. I don't really think that's what it is. I think that she just is in a place of having a very tight control over everything. And I think only giving pieces of your project is not retaining full control. You have to put something out, and then if people don't like it, you have to wait for months until that album comes out. I think more likely what she realized is, you know, a bad song, one bad song can really kick up a big stink for an album that is full of not bad songs. So I'd say it's a precautionary measure, sure, but I don't know if it's specifically for critical success. Taylor and Beyonce should never be in the same conversation. They are not peers. Live for them both. You know what? I can't tell if this is coming from a place of hateration towards Taylor or a place of hateration towards Beyonce, but the way I like to look at it is Beyonce and Taylor are like foils of each other. They are both each opposite examples of what a modern 21st century pop star could be. This is why I always said that they are kind of interchangeable as the greatest pop star of the 21st century, because they do such different things that you can't really compare them or put them in the same bucket. But by the similar token, they are in a stratosphere, a level of critical and commercial acclaim and success that pretty much no one is grazing or touching them on. And what sets them apart from the other, you know, like big pop girls or the main superstars at the moment is the longevity that they've had. Like, you can't really be putting a Billie or a Charli or a Chappell or a Sabrina up there with Beyonce and Taylor. Taylor's been producing music since 2006. Beyonce has been making hits since she was in Destiny's Child in the 90s. And she's still relevant. She's still being nominated for Album of the Year. So you see how that kind of consistency of quality and of impact, I don't think there's ever been a time where either Beyonce or Taylor released something and it was like total crickets. You can say that they've had like weak projects, weaker moments, or things that weren't as good as things they'd done before, but you can't ever really say they had flop eras. I mean, a lot of people will point to Lover as Taylor's flop era, and that's true philosophically, but in actuality, Lover was not a flop by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's gone on to become one of her most successful albums of all time. So, you know, that's kind of, I think, the thing that loops them together is the fact that they are very singular forces in the music industry. If you're just coming at it from a perspective of their music sounds nothing alike and the way they perform is nothing alike, that's true. But I think they have more in common than they don't. Taylor's next era needs an espresso moment, a song that everyone can sing along to. Does it need that, or do you just want it? It's been a while since I put the mic to the camera. How did it feel? Did it land the same way? Well, does she need to have an espresso moment? I don't know. I mean, I kind of like to have my Taylor bangers here and there, but Antihero was pretty big. That was a pretty catchy song. Karma was pretty catchy. Bejeweled was pretty good. If you mean like a song that goes stratospheric around the world, I guess number one, everybody's playing or listening to it, I can see what you mean in terms of like an espresso. I'm trying to think of if Taylor has ever even had one of those truly to begin with. I mean, she's had Shake It Off. We have You Belong With Me and Love Story, but they become classics, you know? Espresso is one of those songs that just like immediately caught on like wildfire. And, you know, Shake It Off kind of did a similar thing, but I don't think it had the kind of staying power and dominance that something like Espresso has. And I think at this point, Taylor she would have to write something kind of beneath her or below her to get to a song that's accessible enough to really go the distance the way that Espresso did. And that's not to say that there isn't intelligence in creating Espresso. There absolutely is. Writing those like really fun, silly pop songs, as Chappell Roan said when she was making, I think it was Feminine Nomenon, is sometimes really a lot more difficult than writing an emotional ballad. And it requires a specific skill set. But I think that that is not an itch that Taylor is keen to scratch at this very particular moment. And she doesn't need to do anything. She kind of can do whatever she wants because she's the monster on the hill. Fearless is a peak that Taylor will never reach again. I was so perplexed by this, and I almost wanted to message the person who sent it and ask, like, what do you mean? Because, I mean, if you are talking about it from a, like, critical acclaim perspective, it has certainly been surpassed by albums like Folklore, for example. If you're talking about a commercial success, I guess it's still her most successful album. So if you're talking about, like, pure sales, I think we need to give some of her older albums, like, enough time to be out to surpass and compete with it. I'm telling you, Lovers coming for that crown. The way that these girls are streaming that album and buying those heart-shaped records for Valentine's Day, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. So I think I need more information here, but I think that Taylor will have a commercial peak that is higher than Fearless and has certainly had better albums. Although I love Fearless. You guys know I'm a MILF. Man, I love Fearless. Christopher Rowe should have never been hired to do the pop re-recordings. Well, yes. Well, yes. And I've been saying that from the start. I've been saying this isn't the man for the job. I've been saying we need to be getting Max Martin back in the stew. And, you know, it's interesting because even when she gets some of the original producers into the studio to work on songs they've already created, Jack Antonoff, I'm Looking at You, the way that you can still fumble a song like I Wish You Would when it was you who like picked that specific guitar sample. I mean, I've talked about this before, but it has to be like a technological thing that is making some of these re-recordings sound really whack. We can just hear in like 8D clarity in a way that we couldn't when these songs were initially created. Like there's a level of texture to them that didn't exist before. So I think that has made it a very challenging effort. But I think that Christopher Rowe is definitely punching his timesheets in sooner than he was able to even write down how many hours he'd worked. She was churning those re-recordings out in 2023. Now, there's no goddamn excuse for there to be a single fumble of a re-recording on Debut or on Reputation because we have had so long to perfect them and get them right. And in their own way, if you think about it, Debut and Reputation are the hardest albums to recreate from a re-recording perspective. Debut because it has a twang and a young Taylor voice that is really inaccessible to Taylor. I was just listening to Mean, Taylor's version yesterday, and let me tell you, I don't know who that is. That's not the Taylor Swift that I heard on the first version of Mean. She isn't even really trying to affect the twang. And that kind of works on Fearless and Speak Now. It gives some noticeable differences, but because those albums were so pop inclined anyway, you kind of forgive it. But with Debut, it's like, how are we going to be doing Tied Together with Smile with that little bit of yeehaw? That's not possible. And Reputation, I mean, is the most productionally insistent album. It's the one that requires the most attention to detail. And so many of those songs are built around a sample or a sound, like the way that the Isn't It refrain gets kind of refracted around you in Delicate and how the gunshot sounds rev up in I Did Something Bad. There are a lot of opportunities for technical fumbles, and there have been several technical fumbles. And I don't think Reputation is particularly vocally challenging, but I think that vocal production part, the intonation, she's doing a lot of talk singing, those things are difficult to get right on a second try, or not even to get right, but to do the same way on a second try. So it wouldn't surprise me if they've been saved to last because they are the hardest ones to create. The way Swifties talk about the original versions is really weird and disrespectful. Again, I don't know what perspective you're coming at this from, because if you're coming at it from a perspective of Swifties should never ever listen to stolen versions ever again and they are dead to us and they never existed and we should only listen to Taylor's version, well then I disagree. But if you're saying that Swifties who say that the original versions are dead and over and were worse and don't need to be listened to, if they're being disrespectful, then I totally agree with you. And I mean, it really just betrays who grew up with these songs and these records and who didn't, because anybody that grew up with Red is not listening to the botched version of Holy Ground. You're just not. If you are listening to Holy Ground, Taylor's version, and saying, there's nothing wrong with it, it sounds exactly the same, well, then you're lying, or you just don't know what it sounded like to begin with. And I implore you to do your research. The Swifties saying tortured poets shouldn't win don't think that, they just don't want backlash. Well, yes. And what's wrong with that? I think, it's a natural instinct as a fan to want to defend the person that you're a fan of and to not see them go through strife and hardship. But also, does it deserve? I don't know. She has 4 albums of the year at this point. It's like anything else is truly icing on the cake. And I could make an argument for each album that's up for album of the year this year. By the time this comes out, we will know who have won, actually, because I'm pre-recording this. So maybe Torture Poets did win album of the year and everybody was clapping and cheering, but I highly doubt, first of all, that it would win, and second of all, that people would clap and cheer if it did. You want to hear one of the worst ideas I've ever heard in my entire life? Taylor should make an entire album with no mention of love, maybe about philosophy, politics, and fame. So you want an album full of The Lucky One, You Need to Calm Down, and Only the Young. That is your journey. I'm going to let you go on it. Suggesting that Taylor doesn't write about love is like suggesting to a painter that they start doing sculpture instead. I think her digressions away from the topic of love are, of course, interesting, and she is a very capable writer, but I think that she is our chronicler of the heartbreak condition. She is the grand feeler of the universe, or of my universe at least, and of many people who follow her work. I am always interested in hearing how she mediates her sense of self through the lens of a romantic situation. Not through the lens of a man, but through how being in a relationship with someone else and surrendering part of your power and giving up control in your life, which is something that Taylor is very bad at historically. She's not very good at handing over her life to chance and saying, you know what, I'm just going to see what happens. And that is kind of the only place where she really gets to do that is in her romantic entanglements. And I think that her music would just become very calculated and stuffy without that. I think there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of potential. And love and heartbreak is her muse. It's what animates her. It's what makes her best work. So even things that seem to digress away from that subject, are fed by the lifeblood of it. So to take it away, I think would be a huge mistake, and you should go to jail for suggesting that. Taylor and Travis are PR, but we still stand. I don't care. I don't care what you guys think PR is or why you're suggesting that you think that it's PR. DGAF. I've gone to a place of not caring, not only about Tayvis, but also about other people's opinions about Tayvis. I don't care. I don't care about Tayvis. If they kiss at the Super Bowl, I'm happy for them. It's none of my business. I truly cannot for the life of me get invested in this relationship because people are just being too crazy about it. And also, I don't care. I just don't care. You guys know how I feel about the purses. They are simply accessories to be worn on her arm. Tayvis need to be over in 2025. I need mess. That's a controversial opinion. But you know what? When her and Joe broke up, everybody was saying, thank God, some good food. So, there is always a bright side to Taylor going through a breakup for her and for everyone else, which is that there's going to be some great work. There's going to be another #1 album. There's going to be another opportunity to block everyone else from getting the #1 spot for 17 weeks. There's a silver lining to every dark cloud. All right, now let's talk about up-and-comers or people that really, had moments in 2024. Gracie Abrams will become as popular as Sabrina if she leans into the fun popish vibes. Okay, so you're saying that if she stops doing her own kind of music and does something completely different that she's never done before, that people don't know from her, that they're not familiar with, then she'll be successful. That doesn't make sense. You can't just copy paste Sabrina Carpenter onto Gracie Abrams. I think a lot of people are underestimating what Sabrina Carpenter was actually able to conjure and achieve with Short and Sweet, because it's not like there is some formula or some playbook on how to be a perfect pop girl. If there was, then Tate McRae would have stolen it by now and reproduced the efforts. Sabrina Carpenter herself didn't have access to that playbook until she came up with the good material. And it's not necessary to do exactly what Sabrina does to be a successful pop star. Look at Chappell Roan. She does something completely different. So I think that copying anyone is a bad idea. Trying to imitate or be overly inspired by another artist doesn't really go your way. And the reason why things aren't really going Gracie's way and the way that, Sabrina and Chappell have been popping off is because her music is not very original. It's not very Gracie Abrams. There isn't something unique and particular about most of it. It's a lot of Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers knockoff. However, she has kind of landed on something with her gasping ranting songs that I like, Risk and That's So True. Is that an applicable concept to an entire record? I don't know, but I would be curious to see. What I'm pretty sure of, though, is that, you have to listen to what your fans actually like about you and what they're drawn to you. And her existing fan base really likes this kind of mopey, drab songwriting that she does. So she's got to figure out a way to make that more interesting, but without alienating her core audience, because you cannot just burn down everything that some people already like you for and start over, because then you have nothing. You chase two girls, lose the one. You really have to pick a lane, and I don't think that picking Sabrina Carpenter's lane is going to get Gracie Abrams where she needs to be. Sabrina's open discussions of sexuality are very feminist, especially in the modern USA. You go, girl. Actually, yeah, I think Chappell and Sabrina really rising to prominence as these beacons of what pop music is and what it should be and what the future of it looks like. Because for so long, it seems like we had a lot of like pop girls in waiting, or people kind of like hanging around the outskirts and having a hit here or there. I'm thinking of the Dua Lipas, I'm thinking of the Camila Cabellos, like people that had moments or flashes in the pan that didn't really pan out into like careers. I don't see that for Sabrina and Chappell. I see something bigger and larger happening with them. And I think that a big part of that is that there are like very feminist overtones to what girlies are doing. And the girls and gays generally, I think, like feminist sentiments. So I agree. I think Sabrina is brave, and I think that she endures a lot of like slut shaming and has had a lot of gross commentary being made about her. I've seen her body being picked apart in really disgusting ways. It is an endless source of fascination to me what people are able to do with a woman simply just presenting their body in a public forum. That's crazy. But I think that Sabrina has navigated that really gracefully and has drawn a really clear line as well between like, I like to sing about stuff like this with like a wink and a joke. It's not graphic. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very like dad joke sexuality vibe. And I think that she has made a clear boundary between this is like a part of me and it's a fun part of me that I'm sharing with you as an artist, but it's not all of me. And that's not all that I have to offer. And to think so would mean that you don't understand what I'm doing. Sabrina is smart and she's knowing and she's self-aware. And you know what? Yeah, we have to give her credit where her credit is due. Sabrina's next record will flop even though I don't want it to. You guys are always coming up with these insane pronouncements and predictions. And I am always left to wonder, why do you think that? Is it that you see someone having success and you think they can't possibly replicate that success one more time? Well, I hate to let you know that in fact it is possible to have more than one hit. It is. Taylor Swift had it. It happened to Taylor Swift. Now, when we look at people like Dua Lipa, then we become a little more silent. We become a little bit more silent. But to me, Sabrina Carpenter has a clear personality. It's not just this album. It's not just the image that she's like playing with at the moment. It seems as though when she's handed the right tools, she can create something interesting. And it's her perspective that makes it interesting. It's not the other people in the room that are making it interesting. They're helping her get at something that she has within her. I listened to an interview with Amy Allen and she talked a lot about Sabrina's songwriting process. And I found that to be very interesting because she's not the kind of songwriter that goes in and says, you know, I have an entire song ready to go and I just need you to help me edit it. She is a collaborative artist. She walks into the room and goes, this is what I'm feeling today. This is what I'm thinking today. And out of that, you know, back and forth, that collaboration, her sense of humor, a good idea pops out. They were really tired. They were kind of overwriting all these songs in this session and her producers were joking around. And one of them, someone in the room came up with Me Espresso. And what do you have right there? A hit. You have a hit. And the trained people in the room are there to have the conversations with you and to get the interesting stuff out and to hear the cadences, to hear the way that you express yourself and help you translate that into a song. So I think with the right editors, Sabrina is in very good hands. And I think that Short and Sweet also was a very short record. I think the album cycle was very condensed and concise. And I think that there's more room for where that came from. I'm not ready to exit the Short and Sweet era. If I were Sabrina, I would be doing a deluxe edition or a part 2. And I would be doing that very quickly, as in this year. So I would be interested to see a bit of a continuation, some deluxe tracks, maybe another US leg of the tour. I think it's not over for Sabrina by any stretch of the imagination. Chappell Roan won't last the decade as a constant. You see, sweeping pronouncements, absolutely no backing whatsoever. I think that Chappell right now is conducting herself in a way that is very interesting to me. And I think she really took advantage of the exposure and the availability that she had in 2024. She did as much as she could. In fact, she did too much. She kind of pushed herself to the brink a little bit. That all culminated with, you know, a very successful appearance at the VMAs and a bunch of Grammy nominations. So since then, she has really been laying low. I think as soon as the pitch of the conversation about her being ungrateful, all this stupid nonsense, as soon as that cropped up, she kind of smartly was like, okay, I'm going to withdraw my name and my sentiments from discussion for a moment. I'm just going to go on SNL and rock. And she's been very quiet for the last month or two. So I think that if Chappell can continue to like keep the mystery alive, she has completely a chance at lasting. Chappell is a shapeshifter. She really reminds me of Gaga in that way. Like she can take on a new persona, a new identity, a new theme, a new vibe very easily. And there is like a lot of space for reiteration and reinvention there. So to count her out is stupid and based on nothing. There was another one saying Chappell will be a victim of a sophomore slump. Listen, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But I think a lot of you are preying on people's downfall, and I don't like that. I like to be in a space of positivity, especially for the girls that have had a lot of success already. And I think that Chappell is well positioned to make another really exciting record. Because if you think about it, Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess was written when it's going to be winning awards in 2025, 3 years ago. Naked in Manhattan came out in 2022. Pink Pony Club came out in 2020. She has developed a lot as an artist. She has had a lot more life experiences. She has performed live a lot more more. She's been in a lot more studios. She's met a lot more people. She has a much bigger team. She has access to way more resources. And she's been very quiet about what she's cooking up. And to me, that is a good sign. The sign that should make you nervous is when we are putting out a project and less than a year later, immediately putting out a new album. Tate McRae, what are we doing? That is showing a little bit of, okay, the first one didn't land. I got to throw everything else at the wall and see what sticks. And I don't think that Chappell is like that. Chappell is taking her time, and that should be a good sign for you, delusional people. Pop artists like Addison Rae and Tate McRae are here for a good time, not a long time, and that's good. You know what? I agree. And I think, there was an interesting New York Times article a while ago that talked about the middle class pop stars. So like pop stars that, have maybe a cult following or have had like one or two hits and then kind of not faded into obscurity, but faded into like a niche or like a cult fandom afterwards. And I think Charli XCX existed in that space for a very long time. It's possible to have a full, healthy, prolific career and not be the most successful person in the world. This is like saying to every entrepreneur, you have to be Elon Musk or else you are a failure. This idea of, a pop girl has to be Taylor Swift in order for her to be successful, or has to be coming for someone's crown to prove that she is worth it or capable or is good at doing things. It's not realistic and it's not necessary. And I think that we need to be giving people the space to play around. And I don't have high hopes for, the likes of Addison Rae and Tate McRae. I think that they are interesting divas. I think they both have something very unique about them. And I think that there's a niche appeal to both of what they do. And I think that I am excited to see when we niche down where that goes. The issue, I'd say actually, let's use Tate and Addison as examples. Addison understands the limitations of her talents and her abilities. You're not seeing her doing performances, really. Live performances of Diet Pepsi. You're not seeing Aquamarine acoustic version. You're not seeing a full-length album coming out with 10 ballads. She understands what her strengths are and what her weaknesses are. And I think that she is moving in a very intentional way with her career while still having fun with it and being flexible and being free and being experimental. Tate, to me, I think seems to be under a bit more pressure. I don't know if it's from her label or if it's from herself to reach a slightly higher level than where she is. I think people see a lot of potential in her, and that is because she is such an amazing performer. Oh my gosh, she really is a very talented performer. But the music is not there, and it's not looking great for this next record. And I think what happens when you overwhelm people with too many concepts, and it's not even like the concept for this record is really much different from Think Later. And actually, when you think about it, neither of those records really had a concept to begin with. Think Later is not a concept. What is that even about? There isn't an organizing principle. It's just like, let's get back in the studio, let's chat GPT these songs, let's release them, let's get another Greedy, let's make a TikTok sound, let's see what sticks. That to me is moving with a little bit more desperation. And I don't know if that's on Tate's end. A lot of the times artists don't really have control over their release schedules, but I do think it's interesting that Tate is being given a lot of budget and she has been given, kind of free reign to post and release whenever she wants, basically. They're sending her out on tour basically right after this last one wrapped up. She's a busy girl. So I think Tate is also enjoying a very successful career. To say that she's not being a main pop star and that nothing is really sticking in a wider sense doesn't mean that she's not successful. There are plenty of people, there in my TikTok comments, that love Tate and think that she's it and think that these albums are great and good and love these songs. And I think that, when we understand and appreciate that every pop star has their place and their moment and not everything needs to be extraordinary stadium sellout, then we have a lot more interesting artists to work with. Give people the latitude to be middling, okay? I think about that as a content creator all the time. I do not have 1 million subscribers. I probably never will. And I don't make the kind of content that is really going to ever reach 10 million people that are going to be interested in seeing it every single day, hanging on my every word. I don't see that happening for me. And I also don't really want that. But I can coexist in a space where people are doing that and still be successful in my own right. I'm still making a good living doing this and having a lot of fun. And having Mr. Beast numbers really would do nothing for me other than bring me a lot more money. And that is not necessarily my motivating goal in life. And I think that, for pop stardom, it's the same. Some girls just want to put out their albums and go on tour. Carly Rae Jepsen is a really good example of this. She, I don't think, is really, that bothered about winning a Grammy or selling out an arena. Those are not on her list of priorities. She's servicing her fan base and doing what she's good at. And knowing your strengths is, just a little piece of life advice that I can give to everyone. I got a couple of things about Troye Sivan, who has me blocked on TikTok. I'm just going to have to reference that in every video. Troye Sivan remains under the radar despite big artists pushing him for years. I wouldn't necessarily say that Troye is under the radar. There's a specific group of people that are very interested in him and go hard for him. It's the same group of people that, love Charli and went to the Sweat Tour. Charli, of course, has had her kind of next level up moment, but she's not that far off from where Troye is right now. And he had a very successful album cycle. I would say probably his most successful album cycle yet. I think that Something to Give Each Other was the record that really made him get taken more seriously as an artist. And I think even if it didn't necessarily have like a new commercial peak or success for him, it was stylistic, it was very well creatively directed, and it was unabashedly gay, which I think is awesome. And part of the reason why Troye Sivan hasn't blown up is because he's doing something that is very overtly gay and is often sexualized in a gay way. And we know that people are homophobic. So that's kind of a 1 + 1 = 2 thing there. And I circle back around to, does everyone need to be the biggest diva in the world? And I don't think that other artists are pushing Troye per se. I can only think of, Taylor invited him on tour and shared his song a couple times, and he's friends with Charli, and they went on a co-headlining tour together. So I don't really know who you're talking about in terms of like pushing, who's pushing him, but I think he's also successful in other arenas. Like, I think he's pretty known for like his taste, right? He's like a home brand and people really admire his interior decorating style. He has kind of like a cultural presence that is bigger than his presence as a pop star, and that's totally okay. Troye would be a bigger artist if he created a sonic idea instead of trend chasing. You know what? I have to say, I really am not moved either way about Troye Sivan's artistry. I don't think that it's amazing, and I don't think that it's terrible, and I don't think that it's inconsistent or inauthentic. It's just kind of there for me, and I don't think that it's bad, but it doesn't grip me in a way where I am like spinning his album over and over again. I listened to the recent one and thought it was good, and I've had What's the Time Where You Are on my gym playlist, but I'm not gripped by it, and I don't think that that's because he's trend chasing. In fact, I felt that the last album was really kind of getting at a sound that felt very Troye Sivan. It didn't feel different from what other people are doing, but it felt very like fitting to who he is and where he is in his life at this moment. But now that you mention it, I don't think I could tell you what his sound is. He doesn't have a sound per se. I think he's like an aesthetic artist. He is more about like the creative direction. He reminds me of Charli in that way, but Charli's more focused on the music, but he's like about the marketing campaign and the performances and he focused on the choreography. I'm thinking of One of Your Girls, like the way that entire song was rolled out wasn't really about the song. It was about the production of it. So, people have different strengths. This next one absolutely sent me. Hayley Williams should do a Gwen Stefani and leave her band. She'd kill it as a solo pop diva. She already did. She already went solo. Doesn't she have like 2 solo albums? I guess that proves that she's not killing it as a solo pop diva, my beloved who sent this in. You don't even know. You clearly like Hayley Williams enough to think that she has a lot of potential to be a main pop girl, and yet you are unfamiliar that she has 2 solo bodies of work. You see what that says? You see what that says. Lady Gaga is a hugely underrated lyricist. Her lyrics are weird AF and somehow work. That is really true. And I kind of took a moment to think when that was sent in to me. I was like, hang on, Lady Gaga actually is a really interesting and weird lyricist. And she's known for her like strange vocalizations, from Red One, Convict, Gaga, to Rah 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 Ah Ah on Bad Romance and Rain on Me, Tsunami. She's just a little freaky girl. And I think that some of her best lyricism is on art pop, actually. Those songs are like such interesting, freakish, strange concoctions. It is like, what would happen if you gave the weirdest girl you knew the most money in the world and told her to make an album, which is basically what happened with Lady Gaga and art pop. Some lyrics on that album silence me. Rocket Number 9, Take Off to the Planet Venus. Aphrodite Lady Seashell Bikini. Garden Panty. Venus. Like, that is literally word for word a hook in one of her songs. And when you listen to the song, you get it. When you touch me, I die just a little inside. I wonder if this could be love. Like, it makes sense. You're talking about someone that makes you feel like you could go into a different dimension. And a song like GUI is incredible as well. She is good at a pun. She is good at a reference. She's very irreverent. She's very cheeky. And Gaga like fully commits to the bit. Like, she doesn't really do sarcastic or ironic. She does like overwhelming commitment and sincerity and earnestness, and that's what sets her apart. And I think that her lyricism actually is the perfect place to pick up on that sensibility of hers. A song like Black Jesus, Amen Fashion, like, how did you come up with that? I don't know. And how does it work as a song? And why do I want to listen to it? You see, Heavy Metal Lover, Government Hooker, like, she has a bunch of bizarro songs in her discography, and I am here for it. I'm clapping and cheering. Camila Cabello is in a real pop era, and she needs to switch. Hyper pop is not her thing. I think you may not have listened to CXOXO because it is certainly not a hyperpop record. I think that I Love It isn't even really a hyperpop song either, other than the actual chorus itself. The thing about Camila is that she was brushing up against a really interesting sound on CXOXO, and another unpopular opinion that came in was, I think CXOXO is a good album. And I'm I'm 50% there with you. I really admire CXOXO. I've done a whole video on this for its commitment to trying something new and to creating something new. Like, for all of its failed attempts and for all of its weird, clunky inconsistencies, there is something new. There's a diamond in that rubble somewhere in the sound that Camila is creating. She endeavored to create a soundscape for the Miami that she knew growing up and that she, became a young woman in with all of her friends. And when you listen to a song like Dade County Dreaming, you're like, oh my God, like, I have not heard anything like this before. And it sounds really authentic, and it sounds like it's coming from a place of real admiration and adoration for a locale. And I think it's really difficult, as a writer of music, to situate people in a place. Lana Del Rey is very good at this. She is the endless chronicler of California, but she has also rendered places like the Midwest and New York as really ornate constructions that are so uniquely filtered through her lens. And I think that Camila was kind of trying to do something like that about Miami with CXOXO. I just wish that it was a bit more substantial. Like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of depth mined there. It feels like it was more an exercise in aesthetic rather than substance. There's a place for give and take with both of those things, but I wouldn't write Camila Cabello off just yet, and I also wouldn't call what she's been doing hyperpop. Radical Optimism was a fun album. Not everything needs to be super deep for it to be good. Now, I think, beloved, that was shade towards me because I've been calling it Radical Floptimism since the minute it came out. The issue with Radical Floptimism is not that it's not deep. That is not the issue at all. And I am 100% with you that albums certainly do not need to be deep. In fact, many of them are better when they are not. Short and Sweet, for example, not particularly deep. There's some interesting things there. It's not full of like intellectual pontifications. That is a great record because the music is really good and the hooks are really good and Sabrina's personality is first and foremost shining through. Dua Lipa for sure managed to produce some very listenable Planet Fitness music, but where is Dua Lipa in there? What's her personality? What's her delivery? I think Future Nostalgia also, that's not a particularly deep album, but there was a theming and there was a production element that made it really interesting. Radical Floptimism is first of all completely different from what she said it was going to be, this like ode and tribute to Brit rock. Like, she is a completely detached from reality version of what that album is in her head to what it actually is in person, which makes me not really trust her taste very much because, again, as I've said, I think she's not that interested in being a musician. She's an influencer. So yeah, Radical Optimism did not need to be deep at all. It not being deep actually was the least of its concerns. The issue was that it was just not very interesting. It was kind of boring. It was a Radical Floptimism. All right, Selena Gomez. It's not an unpopular opinions video if I don't get one submission that says Selena Gomez sucks. And I have to just share with you all, that's not an unpopular opinion. Everyone always loves to talk about how Selena Gomez can't sing, how her songs aren't interesting, how she's blah, 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 not a good actor. People love to hate Selena Gomez. Okay, pretty girl, let's hate on her. And I'm sick of hearing it. I want to hear an actual unpopular opinion. And an unpopular opinion is that Selena Gomez is the best artist ever created. So someone send that in next time, okay? Someone else said that she should have been in the 21st century list of greatest pop stars. And now to that, even I had to chuckle. I was like, no. If it was a list of the greatest pop stars from the 2010s, maybe Selena could have been number 25. But getting on that list, probably not. She is a formidable hitmaker. I will give you that. And I have a TikTok up right now that talks about that, how she is this insane, formidable hitmaker from a certain period of time. But, in terms of carving out a legacy, I mean, no, not really. And you not caring about her is not an unpopular opinion. So next, now we've arrived at the Billie Eilish portion of this video. Eyelashers, are you ready to clip this and take it out of context or slice and dice it up and make your hate TikToks about me that make me more famous? Get ready. This is what the unpopular opinion said. These are not my words. Someone else said to me, Billie's lyrics suck. Her writing is stuck between confessional and abstract. It doesn't work. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it sucks. It's not for me, but I've seen the impact that it's had on people. And I think specifically her first record, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? There are some very interesting lyrical moments on there. Furthermore, Happier Than Ever has a lot of interesting lyrical moments there too. What I do think is interesting about that unpopular opinion is that her songs are stuck between confessional and abstract. And that's so true. And I think that Billie is actually probably best when she's doing abstract. The songs that I really like of Billie's are Bellyache, Bury a Friend, You Should See Me in a Crown, things that are a little bit more about, the delivery rather than the substance of what's being said. But then again, like What Was I Made For is a beautifully written song and, falls into the conceit of the Barbie movie and is an abstract song. That's not a confessional song. So you're kind of right, actually. All of the abstract songs that Billie does end up, I think, being better than the confessional ones. Birds of a Feather, that's an abstract song too. It's about friendship. It's not necessarily about one particular person or one particular kind of interaction that you have. So I'm going to disagree with you that her writing sucks, but I will say with you that it's better when she errs on the side of abstract. I found this one really interesting. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to extrapolate. Tate McRae doesn't know how to package an album. No consistent theme in photos, tracklist, and singles. That is very interesting to me. I've said this, even in this video, that Tate is very much let me see what catches on right now in this moment. And if it doesn't catch on, then I'll just scrap it and start over or do something different or try again. And I think the issue with that is that people get excited to hear from you when they haven't heard from you in a while. And the momentum, the intrigue, the curiosity starts to flame away when each release becomes not memorable, or when each release like comes and goes as it pleases and doesn't leave an impact, which is why you don't often see artists dropping singles like randomly out of album campaigns or starting another album campaign really soon unless they have something really strong. For example, Chappell Roan was sitting on Good Luck Babe for about 6 months after Midwest Princess came out. And like, when you have a song like that, you can't sit on that for too long. You have to put it out. But like, when you are Tate McRae and you have failed to have another hit single from Think Later other than Greedy, which was a TikTok viral song, when you rush to follow that up with an album really fast, which is what happened with Think Later. And I think, you know, you can, when you listen to it, you can tell that it is not well thought through. There isn't really like a conceit or a construct. There isn't really a theme. It's more songs that are trying to kind of sound like Greedy or like moody pop. Exes was like kind of a hit, but it wasn't really like a smash. It wasn't a memorable moment. And following that up with It's Okay, I'm Okay, it kind of came and went, two hands on, dead in the dust. I mean, it is going to take a big song to get Tate back on track for this next record cycle. And I just don't understand why this was all shoved out so fast. Like, I think the Think Later was having a good, actually protracted rollout moment. The tour was doing really well. It was going viral on TikTok all the time. So I don't understand why we didn't just give Tate a little break between doing that. And it's one thing to like announce a single, but Tate like had her album cover, the name, the tour, 2 songs ready to go like months before it came out, and months before it's due to come out. It's coming out in February. Like, it's coming out really soon, and there is not a lot of momentum built for it. And I think that's because she never went away, and you have to give people the chance to miss you. There are 2 strategies. You can keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, or you can go away and come back when you come up with something really good. And I kind of wish that Tate had gone with the latter. But it's true. I mean, So Close to What? What is the theming of that album? I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about. And quickly, you know, Tater Tots, tell me, It's Okay, I'm Okay, and Two Hands On. What's that about? The theme is dance. The theme is hair. The theme is song. Like, it's music. That's all I can say about it. I don't know what else those 2 songs have in common. So Close to What? I don't know what that title means. The album cover doesn't really reveal it to me either. She's just very cool. It's giving Dua. It's giving influencer. It's not giving pop star. And, you know, I believe in Tate McRae's performance ability, so I am rooting for her. But I think that her window of opportunity to like have her Chappell and Sabrina moment is closing. Ethel Cain is pretentious, and people only say they like her so they can feel smarter. Now that's mean. That's mean. Some people like weirdo, freaky stuff. Some people like that, and that is totally on them. I think there is, of course, a level of pretension that goes on with the Ethel Cain heads in this, you know, fandom of hers. She is very referential. She has a lore, crazy lore, that is almost impossible to decipher, even if you try and pay like half attention to it. She's not an artist that you can dip in and out of, and I think that's very intentional. I think that she is an expert example of knowing your niche, niching down diva. I think that American Teenager was a blessing and a curse for her because it gave her some more visibility to reach more people, to spread her freaky message to, but it also brought on a lot of people that really thought they were going to be getting something different. They were like, I ordered a burger and instead I'm getting a pickle, and I don't understand why I'm not getting what I asked for. So hence the confusion when this record came out. And what happens when people get something they don't expect is they usually lash out and they say that it's bad. And then what else happens in response? The classic stan delusional thing, the impulsive need to defend and to tell everyone that they don't get it, rather than just accepting that maybe they don't like it, because you cannot like something while still understanding it. There is a level of I don't get it that goes into Ethel Cain, though, because you have to get it to enjoy it. It's one of those things where like, you can't really say that it's objectively good or bad unless you understand what it's about. And I listened to Madeline's review of the Ethel Cain record, and I heard 8 minutes of bug sounds, and I said, that's not for me. I will not be tuning in. And if you think that makes you smarter than me because you tuned in and you listened to 8 minutes of bugs being squashed, then you know what? You're a genius. All right, that's all I have for you in today's edition of These Unpopular Opinions. Stay crazy, stay deranged. I get them on Instagram, so if you want to send some in for the next one, go and follow me there, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye, everyone.